based on what people are used to. So I think that's probably the North Star low-hanging fruit from my point of view.
Yeah, definitely. If we can get people to on ramp and maybe stay stay in crypto and stay custodying their own keys, that could potentially yeah, just be a paradigm shift. But it's probably really hard. Like people are just used to uh, the normal tools that they use today, like just having everything in their bank account. If they lose their password, they can just reset it. If
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even things like a chargeback, right? Like even if let's say you order something online and it never came, and the company itself is giving you like a hard time, that's definitely something that's like a very convenient thing that you can just call your credit card company. But in crypto, that once the funds are sent, they're sent. But I think it's
Yeah,
totally,
touch rate.
yeah.
You know, that's a big fear, I think, for a lot of the average people.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe this somewhat lack of trust, I guess, in some of the centralized institutions that exist today can start pushing people towards these more decentralized solutions. I think another one is honestly the convenience that comes with having all these all these different assets in one place, and you can just easily trade them. Like for example, there's a Bitcoin pair against pretty much every coin out there, and that's going to be really hard to replicate on a decentralized exchange. Just like having enough liquidity for the plethora of coins that are out there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's interesting. I guess theoretically you could just do wrapped assets or versions of them, but then maintaining enough liquidity in those, yeah, for for I guess to send maybe something like an order book could, or yeah, you could also just have like a ton of liquidity on a long tail of assets. But it's definitely possible. There's similar infrastructure that exists in centralized exchanges, all these big market makers, and even I guess through passive liquidity pooling would potentially make this easier. But that's probably also a hurdle. And then you're outsourcing the trust then to these bridge providers, which have also in the past not been super reliable in maintaining safety. So it's probably also a big challenge. It's like the trade off of the trade-off of being able to just go in, log into an account with a password that you can forget, and if you do forget, you can just recover it, and then on Binance, literally buy any coin you want with Bitcoin or ETH pretty easily. That's definitely going to be hard to replicate, but not completely impossible. Um,
Yeah. And one interesting trend we're starting to see a bit are Web2 style logins into Web3, like
mm,
even using, dare I say, like your Gmail login, things like that. Um, I think there's a lot of experimentation happening right now. Even some like very big leagues that are exploring things like this. So I think that'll shake out a little bit over the next year. But as far as like that easy login, being less worried about losing your keys, yeah, I guess we'll see how that plays out.
yeah, there's one company called I think Web3 Auth that does
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I think it's a multi-sig where one of the keys is held by like a threshold or MPC network, and then another one is held in your device, and then I think the other one is in using with your social login. So if as long as you don't lose your device or access to your social login, you can always get access. But that should probably some things like that should probably make it a lot easier because we there needs to be some stepping stone from the way that people traditionally access these accounts to what it is today. So yeah, that I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you there. Those would definitely be super convenient for people to start using. Yeah, I wonder. So another challenge that I see as well is that these centralized exchanges offer a ton of features that I don't know if any individual application exists in a decentralized protocol where you can do, for example, options or perpetuals, where you can lend or borrow, all within one application itself. I feel like these are all somewhat fragmented across different protocols, and people have to go to Aave, then go to Uniswap, go to GMX as they do all these different all these different actions. But there's nothing stopping someone from building just like a consolidated front end for all these, as long as people trust the back end protocols that are behind it. But yeah, what are your thoughts there? Like, what are some of the features you think that people really would want to see, and how do we offer them all in one place?
Yeah. I think that's a billion-dollar question, to be honest. I imagine really segmenting the customers. And so I guess, one thing that centralized exchanges do well is they have like a very simple product for your day to day, and then they can go super advanced, obviously, like there's trading. I'm not sure that's the play that, say, like a protocol like yours should really go after, or could go after, but and do it effectively and provide all those levels of service. But maybe like a consortiums on teaming up, hitting some like specific segments, like more advanced features. Like obviously, if any users of Pontem are already quite advanced, you guys are now looking at concentrated liquidity and like I guess pretty advanced DeFi positions, but yeah, I mean, really lasering in on specific segments and just like blowing that. It could be maybe there's a way where you could do a consortium with a number of different protocols and try to provide those services as a group potentially. I know you're already partnering with whether it's like Icania and Aries and a few others within the Aptos ecosystem. So I guess I would look at build versus partner approach, and that's something that Notifi is looking at heavily as well. Is like, even for our services, we're still startups in Web3. It's how can we partner to get to scale faster and really provide that like next level experience.
Yeah, that's definitely a good approach. It's why build it all yourself when you can have people that are solely focused on these individual products. And I would argue that the decentralized versions of an exchange or perpetuals or credit are a lot more complex and deserve a lot more attention than the centralized versions of them. Like if something goes wrong in a centralized version, you can just kind of like control, undo, control Z, but that's definitely not something you can do when it's a instantly settled decentralized protocol. So that's a great approach to take. And then something like a consolidated front end of trusted applications would be great. There's I would say some applications that kind of do this, I guess, maybe like a DeFi saver that's allows you to start linking together use cases is good. Looking at doing something similar to that on Aptos, or just a consolidated front end for a lot of these applications. Just having full disclosures for people as to what the backends are and how they're linking together these DeFi apps, I think is super important. But yeah, just having one consolidated user experience on the front end that looks a lot like a Binance or an FTX would probably go a long way in helping people just use this stuff a lot more easily. And yeah, to your point, doing it in a more decentralized way is better. Contagion or central points of failure are less likely, than if it's just one giant super app.
Who I think is doing it, or I guess we've done that path in a pretty interesting way, is Zerion, which they're essentially like a wallet aggregator on ETH, but they're now playing into like corporate DeFi and aggregating a bunch of different experiences and again putting it into their hub. So I think it's a pretty interesting model now that you bring it up. How are you thinking about it as well?
Yeah, so the interface, in my opinion, should probably move into the wallet, and we're starting to put applications directly in the wallet. Y'all will see now there's an application store, and NFTs is the first one that's live, so you can now buy and sell from the Topaz marketplace. I know that it was big news recently that Uniswap launched an NFT aggregator. So definitely, I guess, going along the same lines there. But yeah, Liquidswap is coming soon. Liquid staking, credit will all be available within the wallet, and that's going to get rid of the browser as an intermediary. I do like the idea of creating an SDK and allowing people to create their own interfaces for these protocols. Just make it really easy, giving people the building blocks to create, for example, margin trading apps, or using liquid staking derivatives as collateral to then take out a loan and start providing liquidity and putting that all within one interface or button, and allowing, or maybe if you're like a really adamant NFT trader, adding in a lot of those features within one interface and having that be an application, I think would probably be the future. We're seeing MetaMask Flask, for example, move in this direction. Backpack also in Solana. So I really think the wallet as an interface or an entry point for people where they don't have to leave and can really be someone that central focal point or shelling point for applications. I think the hardest part is trust, because there's still a lot of risk. There's still a lot of smart contract risks. There could be economic attack vectors. There could be unintended consequences as you link these together. But if a really thoughtful approach is taken to what gets put in the interface and people can trust it, and over time a Lindy effect starts to build for not for just for the individual applications but the linked use cases, I think that could potentially just get people to trust. And given that their keys are already in there, now they don't have to go anywhere. They can just go into the browser extension or the mobile app and start doing this. I think the biggest challenge, though, is going to be some of the gatekeepers that currently exist that maybe are not, I don't want to say that they're anti-crypto, but maybe just not super familiar with it. Literally recently, the Apple Store on October 24th came out with new guidelines.
Yeah. That was horrible.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? Yeah, what are your thoughts there?
I mean, I'm pissed, like it just, I get what Apple's trying to do, but it literally doesn't work in our industry. Like you can't control dApps. Like it's like technically not feasible unless Apple's now like a middleman within every wallet, I suppose. And they take like an additional transaction fee in there, like in the smart contract. I don't know. I think it's pretty crazy. We'll see how it plays out. I don't know. Maybe we have to go on Android. I have no idea. That's not a realistic answer though.
Yeah, and even Android might do the same thing. Google might, because it is somewhat of a monopoly that they have as interfaces into the internet. Like most people with mobile phones aren't really using their browsers to interact with applications. These applications are how most people interact with the world on Twitter, on Robinhood, on in this instance wallets. And I imagine the reason they do it is because crypto is a way to bypass payments. Like if you're doing transactions with crypto, there's no way they can take their 30%. So for them, it's lost revenue, I suppose, of in-app purchases or in-app transactions. However, I think there's probably enough momentum now, maybe like a tipping point in crypto users, where it's just not acceptable, and I don't see them taking 30% transaction fees on like every crypto transaction either. An interesting approach, I guess, is a new phone, which Solana is undertaking. Maybe you know a little bit more about this. Definitely not super well informed on that, but I hear that Solana is coming out with a new phone, and it might be due partly because of this, where they can just have their own applications there. But yeah, what are your thoughts there? Like, do we need to go to the hardware? Do we need to decentralize the hardware, I guess?
I think we'll find out soon. So the new phone is called Saga, and it's operating on a new operating system designed by Solana. So it's going to be an Android device. Notify, we will be a day one builder, and early alpha. We do have an app coming out next month um, for our Notify hub experience, and everyone, you can get your notifications even from Pontem and see them pinged through that app as well. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a pretty interesting challenge, and they're trying to embed crypto and crypto payments within actual hardware to make it as easy as an Apple Pay, things like that. Um, Super ambitious. I think we'll see how mass adoption plays out. Um, I mean, I guess there are inherent challenges with what retail will necessarily accept Solana Pay and things like that. Um, or would you use this over, say, a Venmo or I don't know, like Revolut or something like that to exchange funds between friends and peers? But I think their goal is really to shake up the industry and really challenge people's minds on what's the role of crypto, what's the role in devices and these monopolies, and trying to bring it back to the people. So whether mass adoption takes off or not, I think their big goal is to kind of shatter, break some boundaries and shatter people's thinking on, is the world really, a Google based phone or an Apple based device?
Yeah, it's crazy
So
that it's a
we're
duopoly.
excited to be out there.
Yeah, it's super crazy that it's a duopoly. So it's, as I understand it, it's an Android phone with a operating system on top of Android. Do you think it's something, or does it replace Android when you on the phone?
No, it's I mean, at least in this first iteration, it's essentially an Android phone, like their version of an Android operating system. They can't go completely rogue and create something different. Otherwise, app builders would be crushed. It'd be too many things and variations to build for. So luckily we're just
Yeah, good
building our
point.
standard Android device or Android app, and we'll be good to play. But if this really takes off, who knows? We could see it evolving.
Do you think it's something where maybe it could be a little bit more accessible if people can just download the operating system to their existing Android phone, or does it require hardware?
This I think actually requires some of the hardware to connect to the various Solana Pay experiences that they want, and the ability to kind of do easy money movement. I think it was the Apple team that said if you really care about software, you care about hardware, which is what sent them down kind of the iPhone path, and that's the same vision that the Saga team has as well. So um, that's their thinking.
That's true.
You know, I would I would love to see Saga and the whole app and maybe even a crypto phone be, I guess, be more multi-chain. But we'll see how that plays out as well. Be able to bring the best of, say, Pontem into the world. But,
Yeah, that was my thought exactly. Is this maybe they're becoming a gatekeeper for Solana, therefore Solana becomes a new kind of, I guess, crypto phone monopoly. But I would imagine if this goes well, that competitors across Ethereum and yeah, something that's more platform agnostic would probably take off. It's definitely very ambitious to go after hardware. It's like a very you need the economies of scale there are huge. Like just the manufacturing of an entirely new phone. Actually, I don't know because there's probably like I've seen like Indigo campaigns and Kickstarter campaigns for phones, so maybe it's not as difficult as I think, but it seems pretty ambitious though. Hardware is at least compared to software. Um, Interesting. Um,
yeah. You know, I want to go back quickly, Alejo, to one thing you said previously around like wallets really being the central of your Web3 experience, consolidating different activities and dApps. And I think that's a really powerful view, and something that we're hoping to power it with you as well. Like, you mentioned Topaz, right? Whether, be able to execute transactions just through the Pontem experience as well. But then also, for us, we want to bring notifications and those Topaz notifications to users and make sure that Pontem is kind of your core Web3 Aptos experience. So yeah, I mean, I think you really nailed like where the industry and crypto builders should be going, and just being able to tackle on like all different types of services, and like, that's a big part of how we get to kind of that centralized exchange experience, while having the beauty of a trustless decentralized experience.
Yeah, definitely. If you just abstract away everything else, the only thing that should change, I guess, is how you log in. Whereas previously you were logging in with a password that was held, in a database by a central party. Now, the login is your private key. But the application should hopefully feel a lot like the previous applications that exist today. So, I think if we can replicate that experience, a lot of people will just be able to onboard hopefully relatively more easily, because it doesn't need to be this foreign entity. I think a lot of people onboarded onto Coinbase, Binance, FTX super easily, because it does look a lot like a Robinhood or any of these other existing applications. But when you go on a Uniswap or you go on an Aave, you have to use MetaMask. Then am I in the right network? Do I have the right coins? Do I need to then go to a centralized exchange because I can't onboard all these small nuances? One, in the front end, definitely better design, but a lot of it also I think has to do with the backend infrastructure, which is still really fragmented. But I think we're definitely heading in that direction. But if we can just replicate the exact same experience, and I think we're definitely heading in this direction. If we can just replicate the exact same experience, but the only thing that changes is how you log in, and then you keep that private key as close to your heart and as safe as you can with multi-sig. Even the experience of setting up a private key can be really, really simple, I think, if we create trusted parties. And the trusted parties don't need to be new ones. I think exchanges can still be relatively trusted. They have the infrastructure to manage private keys. I think exchange hacks where their private keys are stolen are relatively rare. It seems more like the risk is rehypothecation or misuse of funds. So, for example, I would feel relatively safe giving one event to Coinbase, another one to I don't know, maybe some party that has like a vault or something with armed guards, and they can have one of the keys and then the other one in my device. I would feel relatively safe there, because then a Coinbase or one of these parties can't really take my assets. They're just custodying them. I guess you'd probably have to pay for that service though. But yeah, if that login experience and I guess but if you could pay for like 1Password and stuff like that. So if that login experience can be super simplified. Yeah, exactly. And I think
right there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people now are starting to wake up. I think regular users are starting to wake up that all these free services where you're giving up your information come at a huge cost. At least on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Even myself, I didn't even realize how bad the censorship really was on information that's put on Twitter. One of the threads that Elon was putting out when talking about Apple, someone replied and saying essentially and showing screenshots of their app getting essentially blocked from going into the App Store because they had Pepe the Frog. It said that apparently Pepe the Frog images were for some reason dangerous or were I guess some form of danger to the world that your application can exist because of this, and that extends, I imagine, it's just a power that's like a little bit too scary for a central party to have. And I think people are starting to realize that now, that they're not, their speech and their ability to communicate with each other is kind of like held by just a few parties, and at the end of the day, it's a few people that are making these decisions at these large companies, and that's not really the world we want to live in. And giving people back control of their keys, of their information, of in the case of Solana, of the applications that they're able to use, could potentially be how we start to transition to a new paradigm shift. And hopefully it doesn't feel too different, because when it does feel different, people are a little bit scared to use it. But yeah, I think it's completely plausible, and it might not be that crypto. It's like crypto's not bringing people. It's more like people are getting pushed out of the previous experiences.
The one silver lining in all the crazy stuff that's gone down with FTX and CeFi going bankrupt, and is for the first time, like, I think more people are going back to core crypto ethos: decentralization, own your own keys, own your own tokens. And it's like, for the first time, I've had a bunch of my friends who, they like trading crypto, and it's always been in like a Kraken or Binance or whatever. They're now going to hardware, actually like making exchanges on decentralized exchanges. So I don't know. In a way, we like moved back to like the early years, but hopefully we're here to stay a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most important part, that new people that are actually, or I guess people that normally felt more comfortable using these centralized applications start to feel more comfortable using these decentralized applications. I mean, I'll be honest, I feel more, it feels more convenient to use Coinbase than it does to use anything else. Like, the on-ramp is already connected to my bank account for on and off ramps. I don't have to think about custodying my private keys, although I very quickly moved the Bitcoin away from there. But yeah, like, how do I buy Bitcoin on a decentralized? I don't think that's actually a really good question. How do you buy Bitcoin in a decentralized way? You'd have to like wrap Bitcoin and then unwrap it and send it to yourself.
Right? Yeah, that's very true. Bitcoin's one of those anomalies. And do you trust your wrapped BTC?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah, I guess.
A little hairy.
Yeah, it's like, do you trust like a Wormhole Layer 0 or a Ren more than you trust the Coinbase? Over time, I think so. I think more people will.
Yeah.
And I think it's just
build faster.
Yeah, exactly.
Just keep build.
Yeah, if we just put our heads down, continue building, just the Lindy effect. The longer this technology and all these applications stay alive, the more likely they are to continue to stay alive. I think that's pretty powerful. I think that's why Ethereum, honestly, even though it's really expensive, and even though there's now various, I would say, relative clones that are faster, cheaper, like Solana, like Aptos, Ethereum continues to have this massive network effect. I think it's that Lindy effect, where people realize, like, okay, this thing has been alive for a while. It's relatively safe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But over time it'll catch up. It's still relatively nascent. But interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, my main use case is buying Bitcoin, and I guess that can be easily done on a decentralized exchange, but there's no reason why it wouldn't. I guess you just would need to automate a lot of this stuff and make it into a simple UX.
It's interesting that you're such a Bitcoiner and like leading the way on Aptos. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I'm like 80-90% Bitcoin maxi, and the rest is ETH and like some Aptos for sure. But I don't know. I think the most these are my own opinions, but I think the reason that Bitcoin is so powerful is because it had this immaculate conception that will probably never be replicated. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't even know if we would be where we are today if we knew who Satoshi was, honestly.
Immaculate inception. That's very well put. I love it.
Yeah, Bitcoin becomes almost like this religion where Satoshi is this like godlike figure, and we really don't know exactly what he wanted or what he meant, but we have all these writings, we have the white paper, we have like all these threads on forums that he talked, and we can kind of like think about what he wanted, and then we can all apply our own meanings to his words and the code that he built. Like one easy example is the 1 megabyte block. Like that was so contentious. It created Bitcoin Cash. It almost forked Bitcoin. And like I don't even know what his opinion would have been, but on principle, he wanted just Bitcoin to be super conservative, just get to a version 1. And I think this is also why over time these things will just become more, like the Lindy effect of these things will just become more stable, is that like technically Bitcoin and Ethereum will get to version 1, and then that's it. Like we don't need to touch it anymore. It's just going to work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then once it's there and it's been alive and we don't make any more updates, then it should stay there. Like the pyramids in Egypt. Like those have been there. There haven't been made many updates to them. They'll be there for another 20, 30, 40,000 years. They've been around for 6,000 years. And because they're rocks and they don't move, hopefully they'll be there forever. And I think that's the goal with Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean the fact that it's no one really, you can argue no one really can control it, manipulate the price of it because it's widely distributed enough. There's no person that you can point to say like, oh, this person has enough control over it to say it should go one way or another, is what makes it pretty powerful. And I think Ethereum is getting to that point. Vitalik is definitely, yeah, I think over time, right? And hopefully all of these get to that point, but it'll take time. It'll take decades. But I see Ethereum getting to that point where, for example, Vitalik, even though obviously can be credited as the inventor of the white paper, he didn't really like build a lot of it. He didn't really code a lot of it. I think he made the Python client, but most of his EIPs actually get rejected. He's a thought leader. He's definitely has a lot of influence over it, but he's not Ethereum. Like Ethereum is a conglomeration of the whole internet. Yeah. And I think we need to see that a little bit more on like Solana and Aptos, and I think it'll happen over time. There's definitely trade-offs, right? Like Solana, Aptos, these more, we could argue on a spectrum, more centralized chains can move a lot more quickly. They can innovate a lot faster. If there needs to be core protocol upgrades, that can happen a lot more easily. But that comes at a big trade-off, I think, whereas I think people are probably just corruptible more so than code. Like a code, you can expect it, everyone can see it, everyone can inspect it and see that it's there. But people are a little bit more opaque. We don't really know what's inside people's heads, what their motivations are, and the more we can remove people from the equation, I think the more robust these things become.
Yeah. I have an old mentor who says he trusts machines and code more than humans. And yeah. I think that's a big part of why we're all here and why we're all on crypto to a large extent.
Yeah, 100. Quick, I guess side tangent, but what are your views on the singularity? Like, do you think it's completely plausible?
I haven't been following that much at all right now. I don't have a good perspective.
Yeah, AI is, I think, one of those interesting things where So I studied some of this back in school, and machine learning, all these algorithms are just inputs and outputs, and you put an input in, you put it through neural networks, you give it an outcome, and it'll just run it infinite number of times until it reaches the output, and it'll keep optimizing for that output. And these algorithms are getting really good at doing single tasks. Like self-driving is a good example of it. Speech recognition or autocorrect on your keyboard. The paths for apps on Uber, like these are getting pretty good, right? Like the self-driving one's probably the best example where I I just got a Nissan Leaf, and you can essentially just press a button and it'll stay within the lane. It'll brake if there's a car in front of you. It's not perfect. You should probably still keep your hands on the wheel, but and sometimes it moves a little bit outside of the lane. But I hear the Tesla one is like, it's pretty incredible. Like pretty soon it'll be stopping at red lights. Yeah, it's an agglomeration of all these different algorithms. Like, you have machine vision looking out for bikes, looking out for red lights. Like every time we go and we press a CAPTCHA, we're just training the algorithms to be smarter and pick up on these things. It'll work with what the car is doing, accelerating, decelerating, and that's like one system that's very contained and it has a single purpose to get you from point A to point B. But if we continue on this trajectory, I can see within probably sooner than we think, these starting to get expanded out. And I think it's a little bit scary, but also exciting. And this might be a little bit far out there, but I do think that maybe crypto was the missing piece to enable the singularity, because now, now to your point, we can trust machines maybe more than we trust humans. And now these machines can transact value with each other without human interaction. Just another example, if you have a machine that's optimizing for getting revenue from giving electricity or gas, and then that machine could be like a charger, and that charger has like a solar panel, and it's just trying to attract cars to it, or figuring out the best way to optimize for charging cars. And then cars that are getting people from point A to point B will transact with that machine. It'll just pull up, it'll send it some Bitcoin or whatever currency it accepts, and then the machine will give it electricity. The machine will continue, collecting solar power, and that's now you're just connected to machines that individually had their own purposes and goals, but now they're starting to interact with each other, and you can start extrapolating that out. Oh yeah, sorry.
This is like like Skynet here.
Yeah.
All the Terminator fans out there.
Yeah, it really is, because I think it's probably really hard to build like a general purpose AI that does everything. Kind of like what we were saying earlier about these decentralized applications. It's probably really hard to just one central authority or entity to build like a DeFi super app. But if you just have all these independent applications and they're like solely motivated for one purpose or one outcome, and now you give them the ability to transact with each other without humans, that's probably what can drive the singularity. Like if you yeah.
And taking us back to say like ETH or some of these big protocols, even what you're doing at Pontem, it's like they should be able to transact if the founders die. Like you can't turn these things off.
Exactly.
And, that's freaking awesome, and I think why we see some of these chains as safe havens. I'm an ETH guy. You're a Bitcoiner, but I think we go to them for very similar reasons.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That's the true test of decentralization. If the people that created it die, can it continue to live on? Can it live for 1,000 years? That's the true test. I think Bitcoin at this point has probably passed that test, because we can probably argue Satoshi's dead. And I think Ethereum is definitely getting there for sure. One important aspect of this, and I think there should be some form of coordinated marketing campaign to get this information out there, but not all of DeFi is like this. Like not all of DeFi is immutable. I think a lot of Ethereum applications are. Oh yeah, Gar. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was agreeing. I'm saying not at all. It's like they're super centralized, actually, in some ways. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, exactly. This idea of immutability versus upgradability. So for those in the audience that are not familiar with building smart contracts, on Ethereum, this didn't come native. You had to start building these proxy contracts to make them upgradable, so that, for example, if there was a bug or you just wanted to launch a new feature on your application, you could just use a private key or a multi-sig and upgrade your contract, just change the logic of it. Now there's a lot of benefits to that. Don't get me wrong, definitely a lot of benefits. Let's say there's a critical bug, you can go in there and fix it. Let's say you're making a feature upgrade. You don't have to essentially launch a new version and ask everyone to migrate. Uniswap v1, Uniswap v2, v3, they're all separate applications, and they're what is called immutable. So immutable means that you launch it, you throw away the key, and literally no one can stop it. That's what makes these things super powerful. To your earlier point, if Hayden, if the Uniswap Foundation dies, ceases to exist, these protocols like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, should have the incentives, the game theory incentives built into them to continue to coordinate people or machines or bots to continue performing that one action, which is swapping asset A for asset B. And we saw this play out very real, and hopefully people will realize this on Solana with Serum, where it had what is called an upgrade authority, which is the ability to upgrade the contract. And if someone has the key, and at this point in time, I guess it was speculated that SBF or someone that potentially was compromised as funds were being funneled out of FTX, that same upgrade authority or whoever had the key could do the same thing with Serum. They could go in there, change the code, add in a withdrawal function, and just take out the hundreds of millions of dollars that were in there. And that I think should be super eye-opening and probably not talked about enough. Whereas you need to make sure that the DeFi that you're interacting with actually is DeFi. So I mean, this is super important. Liquidswap is immutable. We launched it. We threw away the key. There are parameters that can be updated. For example, the fees, and that can be done through a multi-sig and eventually a DAO of token holders. But the actual code itself, you want to make sure, and you should be asking from your protocol developers whether you are upgradable or immutable, because if you're upgradable, there's nothing stopping a bad actor from going in there, upgrading, adding in a withdraw function, and then just taking out all the funds that are in there. And this is something super important that I think people need to think a lot more about and talk about. What are your thoughts there on how that paradigm is playing out?
Yeah, I mean, what happened with Serum is super interesting. If folks haven't followed along, essentially all the builders on Solana then forked it and then created their own community-driven, builder-driven blob or protocol. And so it's it's a very twisted thing to see what happened with FTX and just level of impact. But again, people are coming together. We're going back to the origin of decentralized, owned by the people. So there's some bright spots, and funny enough, I caught up with got to know with the Icania team that are one of the big central order books on Aptos, or trying to build it out. And your guys' ethos on decentralization, where all the different parties right now are on a multi-sig. Technically anyone could get voted out. They could get voted out of their own multi-sig, but the idea that the code can live on, and your protocol, overall protocols of the health of DeFi on Aptos can live on, if even just the founders get hit by a bus or something like that, is really powerful. I was really impressed actually by the decentralization and the ethos that you guys have on truly self-sufficient protocols, self-sufficient DeFi. So yeah, it made me really bullish actually on the Aptos ecosystem and what you guys have in play. This is a real deal.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully that's a big differentiating factor against some of the other chains. I think right now maybe the most important thing is values. I think the tech at some point becomes commoditized. All these applications can perform very similar functions, but at the end of the day, what hopefully ends up lasting the test of time are these values of being decentralized, allowing these things to live on for hopefully 1,000 years. And that's recursive. It goes down from the application layer, should go all the way down to the protocol or the consensus layer. And I think that's that's awesome to hear, actually, that that culture that we're driving, the team at Iconia, the team at Pontem, definitely some of the other teams that we're building with, Tsunami, for example, Thala, all these folks, Ditto, all these folks definitely have a lot of the same ethos and principles and values that honestly we're born and bred in Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? It's just that, yeah. But and I think it's important because if we really want to get, and going back to the main topic, if we want to get to decentralized being better than centralized experiences, not just for exchanges but for all applications, the throughput really is, I think, the biggest barrier to adoption. Even on Ethereum, I was talking to this earlier. I don't know how accurate it is, but even on Ethereum rollups, if you were to put all the bandwidth on Ethereum layer 1 into one rollup, you could really only get to around 5,000 TPS, and that's like putting all the bandwidth into one transaction. So that's a theoretical limit we still need to figure out. I think I could be mistaken, but I think rollups right now are in the hundreds to thousands, maybe not even getting to thousands yet, and I think it could take several, like 5. I remember talking to the Arbitrum team back in July, and I think they were saying like it could take another 5 or so years to get to another order of magnitude more in transaction throughput. So that's not that much. A few thousand transactions per second is not that much. Like if let's say a transaction is a like on a social media app. If we're all trying to like the same post that Elon just tweeted, that's going to cost a lot of money, or it's going to take a while to get there. But Aptos, for example, theoretically, if it can scale to 100,000 TPS on layer 1, and then you can create rollups, the same iterative rollups, and fit a few thousand transactions per every transaction, and batch that into a transaction on the layer 1, then the bandwidth can hopefully increase a lot more. So this is like a real problem that needs to be solved, and it really seems like Ethereum might not get there in time. So it's important to build these high throughput chains. I think there's trade-offs in the tech, maybe trade-offs in some of the values of how they're built and how they're executed and governed. But we need to bring the values from Bitcoin, from Ethereum, to these high throughput chains so that we can reach mass scale adoption. Like if we're gonna get all the volume from Binance over to a decentralized exchange, people really need to trust it, and it really needs to work, and it can't be super expensive.
I have to say it's so good to hear, because some of my suspicion on whether it's different L1s or L2s is like when you go back to safety and who you can trust. A lot of these ecosystems, they don't have that ethos. The builders don't necessarily have that ethos, and so when you think of where are you going to bet in the long term, like who are you going to pick? At least for me, it's really important to have that mindset. So, again, it's reassuring to hear. And I think, all the builders who think like this, and, I don't know, we really need to put that view out more. I think it adds a lot of trust for, I'd say, like folks like you and I, and like, where do I really want to play? Where am I least likely to get, even like rugged, for example? So, I don't know, we have to get that out there.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Hopefully people are out there listening and reading the code. Honestly, like don't trust, verify. Make sure the code that you're interacting with is immutable. This is another benefit of Move, actually, maybe unintended consequence, but it's actually really hard to build closed source code on Move because you can decompile and look at the functions. And in Solana, I know that it's somewhat normal to have closed source code, and I know Anatoly was out there definitely advising people that they look and ask that they have either multi-sigs or immutable code launched. But don't trust, verify, look at the code. Maybe we can create tools like automatic checkers with OtterSec or other auditors, so that people can go in and see like, hey, is this application truly immutable? what are the functions or parameters that are upgradable or changeable? Can I trust this? And over time, yeah, the people that are building it will code those values and principles into the applications, and that's what you should trust. I guess verify, don't trust. But yeah, man, thank you. That's like a really heartfelt thing, and I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, thanks for building that way too. We're excited to partner. I love working with like-minded folks.
Awesome.
Build a better Web3.
So I know we only have a few minutes left, and I see your avatar here is an alien. So this is part of the fun of this live stream. I love to get people's views on aliens. So it seems like you're a fan, but tell us, what are your perspectives on them?
On aliens, well, I'll say I picked this avatar because this is one project that's part of Gray Boys, which is this like NFT metaverse project that was super hype, and I held it to 0, and now I need to create more utility out of my NFT. so that's why I have it, which is probably like weird, but it's like, what, I'm gonna fucking use this. And then I don't know, theory and aliens definitely exists. Life exists in the ecosystem. I feel like it's impossible, or in the universe. I feel like it's impossible for it not to. So I don't know. That's my quick take.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's out there. They might even be among us, to be honest. I think like if we zoom out and realize like how small we are, and how little time we've been here. And how much we've accomplished too in such a small amount of time. Like we're probably bacteria or ants to like some very advanced civilization. Like I feel like if they were right in front of us, staring us in the face, we probably would not be able to see them. But yeah, I think
they could be here, man. They could be everywhere.
I think so. I do think so. I think this is my. This is one view. So I think it's recursive, and they probably look a lot like technology. Like the singularity probably already happened somewhere else. Like if evolution or stars and planets are recursive, then some other life form eventually reached singularity, and then we evolved into this. Like literally, Elon put a chip inside a monkey's brain that can start typing. That's yeah. That's like step one. Like if you expand that out, and like, okay, so if that was remember that plane started from bicycles. There was like literally 2 guys riding a bicycle with wings off of a cliff. If we're at that stage right now with chips implanted into our brains and starting to become part of living beings, at some point in time, I imagine machines and took over whatever life is. And I think one could argue machines are just an extension of life. If they can continue recreating themselves, they continue improving, evolving. That's probably what they are. And then likely maybe this is like a machine simulation, I guess. And if the aliens wanted to,
Matrix.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All these thoughts that we have and we put into art are probably just like glimpses into like what's actually going on. But yeah. Awesome, man. Alex, I really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'd love to have you again sometime soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And yeah, we're excited to work together more, and I'd love to join another AMA. So let me know.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have you again soon. Really excited for the launch of notifications on Notifi coming up on the Liquidswap front end. The wallet will be coming out soon. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, folks.